During my 24 years of formal education to become a doctor, I learned many things, from how to write a 5-paragraph essay, how to survive the Oregon Trail, how to calculate an integral and derivative, and eventually even how to save a life. But when it comes to building wealth, there's one financial lesson I wished I would have learned a lot sooner: compound interest. And it's reputed that Einstein called it the 8th wonder of the world, and those who understand it earn it, and those who don't pay it. Compound interest is a powerful force where your interest earns interest on itself. Today I'll tell you about the time I lost $50,000 because of compound interest,
but what I've learned from that mistake, but how I've used compound interest on my way to become a millionaire.
When I was 27, I began my residency with approximately $200,000 in debt, but I didn't prioritize paying it off, and I took advantage of grace periods, deferrals, forbearances, and made little to no payments for the 3 years. Instead, I used the money to finance a car, rent an apartment I couldn't afford, and bought expensive clothes to impress other people. By the end of my 3 years, at a 7% interest rate, my student loans ballooned up to $246,000, meaning I had thrown almost $50,000 into the toilet. One thing I had failed to realize is that my student loan was calculated by compound interest and not simple interest, meaning that the interest was earning interest on interest and growing at an exponential rate. So, if my student loan had been calculated via simple interest, every year I would owe $14,000 or 7% on $200,000, and by 10 years I would owe $140,000. But it was calculated via compounding interest, meaning that the first year I would owe $14,000, but the second year I would owe $14,980 because I would also owe interest on the interest. By the third year it would be over $16,000, and by 10 years I would owe over $200,000 in interest alone. You see, simple interest grows linearly, but compound interest grows exponentially. I started to realize how toxic the compounding interest was after 3 years, because if I had waited 5, 15, or even 30 years, I really would have had to pay the effects of compound interest. But let's look at the effects of time and compounding interest another way. Meet Quan and Quinn. Quan starts investing at age 20 and Quinn starts investing at age 45. They each put in $1,000 per month, and assuming an 8% interest rate compounded, Quan would have over $600,000 by the time he's 70, but Quinn only has about $80,000. Despite saving for only twice as long, Quan earns 7 times the amount than Quinn does. As we can see, time magnifies the effect of compound interest. So if you owe it, you want to make sure to pay it off as early as possible. And if you earn it, you want to make sure you start as early as possible. After flushing $50,000 down the toilet, I quickly learned from my mistake and learned how to make compound interest work for me. I started by investing in low-cost index funds. During the last 6 years, I have earned well over 6 figures passively. I started investing simply by maxing out my 401k with its employer matches, my Roth IRA, my health savings account, and extra money into brokerage accounts. I was saving well over 50% of my income, and I also paid off my student loans and learned how to make compound interest work for me. They call compound interest the 8th wonder of the world, and I think of compound interest like the ocean, in that if you don't understand its power, it can toss you around and cause you to drown. However, if you do understand how to harness the ocean, it can elevate you in ways you never knew were possible. So if you like this video, check out this one about 2 couples who use compound interest to retire in their 40s. And this has been the Tin Man at TinManFIRE, and we'll see you next time.